It was an early morning in Poland. Starlight was getting ready for her work as a counselor at the School of Friendship. She was having breakfast with Spike and Twilight, and they were just talking about some of the school's activities today. And even though the Starlight were excited for since this was the first class after summer vacation was over, and she has been excited to go back to school though, because during her when the school was closed for summer break, she had doing some more studying about being a counselor and even trying to figure out other ways to communicate with the students. And she had made a lot of progress, according even to Twilight though. And rest of that day, Twilight and even Starlight were having some discussions about for upcoming year, upcoming studies on if Starlight could pop in as some sort of substitute and as assistant teacher for if any of her matters, if the regular teachers like Applejack or Rarity are missing or are busy with something else. And Starlight said that she always could be possible stand up as another teacher for a day or two. But there were one teacher, or at least another pony, or at least another creature that Starlight had also in mind if something that for Twilight. And she asked who? She said Discord. Even though that Twilight was a little bit skeptical about letting Discord to be a teacher at school. But she even asked what kind of position. He Starlight thought maybe about teaching about magic. Something about maybe teaching about chaos magic and shape-shifting abilities and or perhaps even some of the spells like he can transform into unicorn or and from that he can teach students about simple unicorn magic with Starlight like or perhaps they can even have Strixie as another assistant teacher which Starlight and Twilight not thought that could also be a good idea. Depends from of course if Starlight's Discord wasn't even busy at the time. There were a lot of things about their time at school though, because after school was over, Starlight was going to the market to buy some food for dinner. When she suddenly ran into some pony. She apologized for what had happened, and she saw there was a unicorn. This unicorn had just recently moved Ponyville, and you know his name was Rising Dusk. Rising Dusk had been living in Ponyville for about a few weeks. He recently moved there from Trottingham, and they had started getting a close friendship. They had sometimes small talk either at the market, at the park, or basically anywhere. They're getting quite good friends, and even Starlight had even offered when he moved into Ponyville to show me around, like how to find some places, like find a market, how to find Sugar Corner, the School of Friendship, and so many other places. And he really appreciated it from that time. And she even learned that Rising Dusk had even a long-term relationship with a mayor who lived back home in Trottingham. And they were having this long-distance relationship. They've been dating for about 2 years. Even though the Starlight and Rising Dusk were getting good as good friends. But one day, when Rising Dusk's girlfriend came to Ponyville for a visit, she saw her boyfriend with Starlight that was just laughing. But she knows though about Starlight since he was mentioned her in some of the letters that she's a good friend who has been showing him around in town at least, and even introduced him to other ponies in town like Big Mac, Applejack, and the others. And she was just happy to know that he has a good time. Even Starlight had asked her, why doesn't she live also in Ponyville? But it turned out she was working as a journalist back in Trondheim, and she had been hoping she was about to be promoted to head journalist, and she couldn't even leave Ponyville if she did. Leave for Ponyville. But they had figured out a way to keep their relationship even as a long distance. And so far it worked between them. But until one day when Starlight was walking through the park when she found Rising Dusk sitting on a bench and he didn't seem happy for some reason. She walked up to him and asked if something was wrong. He said that he and his girlfriend had broken up. She was a bit surprised because apparently they were working so well together and just suddenly they were over. She asked why she had broken up with them after they'd been together so long. It turned out that she just had been promoted, but it also meant that she had to work sometimes overtime. Overtime at work and sometimes maybe even on the weekends. And they tried to sometimes spend see each other as often, maybe each weekend and each month. But sometimes now after she was promoted, she was almost unable to see him almost every weekend. Or at least maybe was able to see him perhaps 2 to 3 weekends per month. But that was less to maybe 2 weekends until perhaps only one weekend, and then suddenly she was only able to see him perhaps just one Friday per week per month. He tried to stand at the point. She didn't even ask him if he could move back to Trondheim. Then it would make it easier that they could just live together and that would easy to be happy. But he did mention to her that he didn't want to leave Ponyville. She asked why. It turned out he had started loving living in Ponyville. It was more quieter back in the big city. They didn't argue about some things. They tried to figure out a way to make them to keep their relationship steady. But after a while, it didn't work between them. But it's separate that they get a separate ways on as good terms as friends. And Starlight was just up. She was really sad to hear about this, but she told him there's always another way to figure out that maybe find some other pony to be with. Maybe someone more local. And then even though Rising Dusk said thanks for that, and she said that if he wanted to be alone, she can always leave that for that point. But there was something else though. She had started liking him more as a friend. But she didn't tell him that, especially when he was dating his ex-girlfriend. He didn't want to ruin his relationship with his ex-girlfriend or even wanted to ruin their friendship. So she didn't mention this. So the things between them seems to be working as just good friends. And he remained single for about a few months until he has been encouraged by some of his male friends in Ponyville to try speed dating or something like that. And after a while, he tried that, but it didn't seem to be working for him. He did actually had some casual dates with some of the mares he encountered from the speed dating. But it didn't last for particularly long though, because he didn't felt any some sort of connection to any of them. So he decided to just wait for the right moment for the right mare to show up. And one day after about almost he had lived in a ponyville for about a year, he decided to maybe try to date some pony else though. But he didn't know exactly who to be asking. But then he actually by chance overheard Trixie talking with Spike and even with Fluttershy. It turned out that Trixie had been told by Starlight she had a crush on Stallion, who lives in Ponyville. But Starlight refused to reveal exactly who this pony were, except that he has recently been only been living in Ponyville for some time, and that he was living in a big city. And but the only detail that she could mention it was a unicorn, and for some that reason Rising Dusk started to figure out maybe that Starlight had a crush on him, but he couldn't be 100% certain. So he decided to ask her by himself. And one day, although only a few days later, he found her at the park. She was sitting there and relaxed when he walked up to her. They were small talk first before he decided to ask her some of this question. But when he did, her face went pale. It was like she had seen a ghost. She asked him with a bit shaking voice how he'd find out. Then he explained, and tricked Starlight just put her hoof in her face and like, oh, Trixie, you shouldn't have said anything. But he said that it was kind of cute of that she had a crush on him. But he asked her how long she had been feeling like this and why she hadn't even mentioned this to him. She said that she had been felt like this for about a year. And the reason why she didn't mention this to him, it was like she had just fallen in love with him by the time when he was dating his ex girlfriend, and he didn't want to ruin their relationship, and even want to ruin their own friendship with him. So that was the reason that he didn't mention this to anyone, especially him. But now that he knew about the secret, she told him that she understood that he wasn't even interested in her in some way. But before she was about to leave, he said that he would like to go out with her on a date. That surprised Starlight, but she even asked if he was serious, and he nodded that he was serious. He had been single for about a year, and he was ready to go out to being on dating site again. So he asked her. But after all, she has been so kind to him. She has always been there for him when he was in a bad time, when his ex girlfriend broke up with him, when they broke up, and he wanted to have some time with her though. So they decided to go to this park, the same park they are, for a picnic for the next day. So they agreed. And the next day, Starlight went to the park waiting for rising dusk. And it turned out they had just a great time. Even they were both a little bit nervous because for Starlight, this was actually her very first date almost entire life. But after that, Starlight and Rising Dusk became more close to one another. They actually started getting along with some. He even broke the ice between like with some jokes and even telling him some about his childhood when he lived in Frothingham. And he did actually knew about Starlight's bad past. But he said that's in the past. And that is want to be. I don't judge you for who you are now. And after all, he likes her. And after the first date, he even asked her if she wanted to go out with him again, and which she said yes. And things between them seems to be going quite so well between. They didn't have any issues at all. Their friends was just really happy that Starlight was happy. She had found some pony to be with, especially that with Rising Dusk. Some pony who can be treating her with kindness, honesty, but most of all, true love. Even when Starlight had wrote a letter to her husband, to her father back home, he was really excited to hear that his daughter had found some pony to be with. He was even eager to get to know him personally. So he had in fact invited both Starlight and Rising Dusk to her old home. Starlight had mentioned this to him, and he was really excited to get to see her father. After all, he was eager to see where she grew up. And even though that Starlight was a bit nervous about her first meeting with her father at some time, especially when he was going to meet her first boyfriend, she was expecting that he would be more like a protecting actor, like he was going to live in a go into some sort of protective mode or overprotective, some sort of like that. And so she decided maybe it was the best idea But it was until late though, because he had managed to convince her to go. So they went to his old home, and the meeting was actually were more than better than she expected. It seems that they had so much in common. Starlight was really happy that her father was really excited that to get to meet Rising Dusk, and they both of them actually had so much things in common. They both like to practice magic and even like to study history, and even want to preserve some of the historical buildings of a part of of a city, to preserve some of the old buildings to future generations. At least maybe it's like that, to keep some of the stories, historical parts of the story of town or something. And for that, Trick Starlight was just happy that Rising Dusk and her father was turned out to be good friends. But it was something about when they came back home. She told him that she was so nervous that her father would even like him. But he laughed and said, "I understand that, Starlight. I would understand that myself. I was in fact even nervous that he wouldn't even like me at all, a bit." And that made her laugh. And for some after that, things between Starlight and Rising Dusk but only getting stronger. And after all, things between them was just perfect. And he was actually working as a carpenter in Ponyville. And after they'd been dating for about maybe as 2 years, they decided to move in with each other. So Starlight moved into him, and it was just a great time. Even though they first were a little bit nervous how things between them was going to work, because they didn't want to move in so directly because they wanted to take it slowly. They didn't want they it seems both of them didn't know how things between them was going to work, and their love between each other was so pure, so strong that it could cross the entire world and beyond. Even both of them had some amazing time on their first heartwarming eve together. They were having a great time on it. And both of them couldn't even expect to have this amazing time. And especially for Starlight. She couldn't even expected that we would celebrate one of the biggest holidays with her boyfriend. And especially be living with them also. And after they've been dating for about another 4 years, Rising Dusk took with Starlight on a cruise to celebrate. But she had no idea that he has a big surprise for her. And as on the day before the ship was going back to Maid Haddon, they actually celebrated. But he had a big surprise though, because during the sunset, he asked her if she wanted to marry with him, and she said yes immediately. She was really excited. She started even crying because of that, and she could not have been happier. And when they came back to Ponyville, all their friends could not have been even happier. They were so excited. They really were excited about all this for their friends getting married. Even both families was even excited. Especially Starlight's own father. He was really, really happy that his own daughter was getting married. Especially when on the big day happened. Starlight, she was really happy. She was overjoyed about this big day. The only pony that was scared and nervous was in fact Rising Dusk. He was so close to fading at the altar, but Spike and Discord managed to keep him calm. But when he saw Starlight walking in, for some reason, all his fear or his been afraid vanished. Seeing her in the wedding dress walking up to him, it made his heart calm for some reason. But he was really happy to see that. And even at the parties afterwards, the both of them shared the first dance together. It was a great time. When they were staring it deep into each other's eyes, it was like they was the only ponies there. Like the whole world was just standing still. Both of them was really happy though, because even later that evening, they went to Las Pegasus to celebrate the honeymoon for about a whole week. They both had a great time with the magical shows and enjoying the rides, everything, just having some amazing time. But then, of course, they were had to go back home. But they were just happy to have entered a new chapter in their lives together. And 3 years later, Rising Dusk and Starlight had a big announcement. They were going to have a baby, and especially a baby girl. All their friends and families could not even be excited to be a grandparents. And then, only a few months later, the daughter was born. They named her Crystal Rose. Crystal Rose, she was really excited though. She was a very energetic kid. She always ran around in the house, practiced magic with her parents, but she managed to keep her calm, even that she couldn't sit still for not even for a minute. But there was one pony that she liked to be with the moral was in fact her aunt Pinkie Pie. She loved the baking with her, and for some reason that actually kept her calm for most of the time. And even of course when she even got older, she became like Pinkie but even more calmer personality. She wanted to be a baker, and she was about 10 to 12. She even started working with Pinkie at Sugar Cube Corner, like an assistant apprentice work. She wanted to work there when she was a bit older. When she was 18, she actually started working at Sugar Cube Corner with the Cake Twins. And she has an amazing time. And for in fact, only one a few years later, Crystal Rose, in fact, fell in love with a local gardener, and they even themselves got married after about 4 years, and they even had twin daughters together. And for both Starlight and Rising Dusk, having such close relationship with their most the opponent they loved the most. If Starlight never had told Trixie about her feelings for Rising Dusk, he would never have found out, and they would never have been dating and end up married and having a beautiful daughter together. Even if that happened, Starlight may never have found her true love, especially within the Rising Dusk. And for Rising Dusk, though, he could never have been happier to be with the pony that he loved the most of all. Starlight really completed his life. He feels whole, full of joy and happiness when he was with her. And that's how Starlight Glimmer and Rising Dusk found a true love, got a big family. The end.